Hello, everyone. Holly here. I'm one of our conscious agents on the Reality Sandwich website, and I'm here with my friend Elizabeth today. And she's going to be sharing a little bit about her experience with ayahuasca. Thanks for joining me, Elizabeth.
Yes, thanks, Holly. It's so good to see you. We haven't talked in a while, let alone seen each other's faces. So
Yeah.
I'm giddy on multiple levels.
Yeah, this is a great way to connect again.
hmm
So, for all of our listeners out there, can you share a little bit about yourself, where you're from, what you're into, what your life's all about?
Wow, it's a lot. But to put you on the resume here, I am a registered nurse. I have been for about 12 years. I work in a community health clinic, and I'm also a massage therapist here in the Black Hills of South Dakota. I grew up here, and I think you grew up in this area as well,
Yep.
at least around the area. And so, Western South Dakota, Mount Rushmore's near us. It's irrelevant to this conversation, but it's here. Actually, it's really not. I mean, we'll get into it, but I'm a witch, I'm a mother, and I'm a curious kitty cat.
I love it.
hmm
So, you're going to be sharing about an ayahuasca experience today, but for most people, that's not usually where you dive in with psychedelics. So, did you have experience with psychedelics before this, or how did this curiosity to sit with ayahuasca begin?
So, no, I'm not really experienced with psychedelics in general. I've dabbled here and there in my early 20s. Somebody has a little lick of acid and it's like, okay, I'm out in the woods. I can do that. Or I've done mushrooms to a degree as far as like actually tripping, not microdosing, which is kind of the cool thing to do now. So no, not a whole lot of experience. And I was trying to remember like why ayahuasca called to me or how she called to me. And it started with my obsession with the Mayans and the Aztecs. I don't know how that happened. Perhaps a National Geographic magazine when I was a kid. It's kind of like your thing with orcas where it just came to you and you're like, I love that. I want to know more. Um, I really was called to the Aztec calendar and then learning about 2012 and how the calendar's going to end. So this was probably like in 2005 or something. Calendar's going to end. What does it mean for the world? I've always been a person who's kind of obsessed with death and dying and the mystery, the unknown, the darkness, the depths. And that was just one of those things that kind of fulfilled that curiosity for me. I found a book. Don't know how it came across it, but it was called 2012, The Return of Quetzalcoatl, and it was by Daniel Pinchbeck, I believe. And he's a big psychonaut out there.
Which do you know he was the founder of Reality Sandwich?
No,
Or
I
one
did
of the
not.
original founders of Reality Sandwich? Yeah.
No, here we are, full circle.
Here we are. Here we are.
Now, if we can bring Kevin Bacon into our constellation.
Okay, we'll figure that out. We're getting
Yeah.
there. We're getting there.
So it was that book that I read, and he talked about his personal ayahuasca experiences down in South America. I'm not sure if he was in Peru, but I'm pretty sure he was down there. And the collective consciousness, the idea of visions and dreams. And so it was these things that I have grown up with, like just having thoughts and having dreams and having visions and not really knowing why or where. And then so coming across someone who says like, oh yeah, this was my experience with this medicine. And then learning more about that. It just was always there. It was one of those things on the many back burners of my multitudinous curiosities where it was like ayahuasca. But I never wanted to seek ayahuasca. I didn't have a desire to go to South America or Colombia or Peru or wherever. And it just, because it kind of scared me. There was like, I'm not ready. I'm not ready for this. Without even really knowing what that meant. What am I not ready for? Um, so yeah, that was the beginnings of when ayahuasca came to me and how really for years it was just a recurring curiosity. I didn't, and I don't, but I'm not curious about acid, and I'm not really curious about tripping balls either. So I think that's why I was scared, knowing what can happen as far as the physical symptoms. It wasn't even, I don't think I was scared to have a trip or a vision. It was like, I don't want to throw up and poop myself.
Yeah. What's gonna actually happen to me? Yeah.
Yeah. But still the tingling is there, right? Like it's not something I ever dismissed. It was there. So I can tell you how it came to be, the ceremony came to be, if you want me to keep going.
Yeah, yeah. So yeah, how did this opportunity present itself to you?
Right. Because she would have had to present herself as I was not seeking
Yeah.
and searching and
Mm-hmm.
all of that. During the pandemic, I started reading tarot online. I'm a tarot reader as well, and doing Zoom readings for folks. And I found a friend who we had done a few readings together. His name is Thomas. He is from the Pine Ridge Reservation here in South Dakota. And through our connection, like a year in, he said, hey, I have this opportunity where I'm going to host my ayahuasca teachers, my shaman friends from Colombia. They're going to come up here and I'd like you to join. And he had asked me to join Sweat before, like Sweat Lodge. And I was always like really grateful, but like, I don't know what that means for my, my evolution. And I might get physically sick, and that sounds awful. So this time, though, the fact that ayahuasca found me seemed profound. It seemed like, oh, now she's here. Now I'm being invited. And I also have a personal mission I'm a healer just by nature. And then I'm here on, the lands of the Lakota people. And so I think it's important to give back and not just be a taker. And so part of my healing is that I want to help heal the land and heal the people who have been wronged by colonization and white supremacy, ultimately. And so this felt like, as Thomas's mission, he calls himself a rainbow bridge, where he is part Lakota and part white. He feels like it's part of his mission to bring these cultures together in love. And then his shamans have this belief that with the plumed serpent, Quetzalcoatl, the North and the South should come together as well. And really that folks shouldn't be so, isolated and or segregated, that we all should be together in a rainbow, in a prism. So everyone's mission in this was also aligning. And I said yes. And I had about 4 months to prepare. And the ceremony itself was in June of 2021. It was the summer solstice, which also felt really special too. And
This was where did it take place?
so the ceremony was on the reservation. It was in Porcupine, South Dakota. So on the Pine Ridge Reservation, which again, that felt like I just needed to have this incredible amount of reverence and treat this right. And so it was really cool that the way it was coming to me was how I would have loved it to come to me too, where it was like, all right, this is special, this is ceremonial, this is ritual, and now I'm going to the lands of the people here. And it was a big, it was going to be a big group too. It was like 30 folks out for a weekend out in Porcupine, South Dakota, which is the foothills of the Black Hills. There's it's kind of, I don't know, it's really sacred and magical. It's beautiful out there.
Yeah, Pine Ridge is pretty incredible. I've had a little bit of time out there. I got to help build a hempcrete house out there on Alex Whiteplume's land, and have been honored to have spent any time out there. It's a really special place. So yeah, I can only imagine.
It's special, which is what I exactly like. I was like, all right, this is how I want to meet ayahuasca.
Yeah.
This sort of session, and have these intentions to go in with, I'm not just there for myself, right?
Yeah.
I'm there for the people.
So you had a lot of lead time. You had 4 months to kind of think about this and prepare. But as you got closer, did you practice any kind of dieta, or like what did you do to prepare your mind and body before you went out there?
Um, so just my usual, rituals in the morning, like breath work, yoga. And I think I was starting to talk to what Thomas said was grandmother ayahuasca. So I started asking, like, hey, I'm coming into this. I'm going to meet you. I'm open. So there was a lot of I'm open. I'm open to receive. Uh, Diet wise, yes. I think the month before I started to eliminate meat and dairy, like the week before. I eliminated caffeine. And it became just a super simple whole foods diet, which I tend to stick to anyway, but I just did it a little more. And I fasted a little bit before. That's what I was saying, like eating the berries, like right before. I'm like, that's kind of what happened, where I was just like, oh, I'm so hungry though. So I'm going to have some fresh fruit. Preparing myself with diet and eliminating no alcohol, no tobacco, so no nicotine. Yeah, I definitely took it seriously. And a lot of that had to do with the reverence, but a lot of it was like, I don't want to shit myself. So whatever I got to do to not shit myself, let's do this.
Yeah, I totally get that. I took it seriously too. I was like, I want to be as clean as I can because
Yeah.
as hard as it is to avoid the fact that we live in a human body, I was like, I want to have this be ready.
Yep.
Okay, so let's set the scene for me. Let's dive into your experience. So you show up at this reservation. Were you inside, outside? What
So I
was this?
invited a friend.
Okay.
Who I went to massage school with and knew she was interested. So she's also a mental health therapist here who is getting some training in PTSD, psychedelics, facilitating therapy. And so I knew she would love this. And I wanted a friend too, because I was meeting Thomas for the first time and everyone else. So it was like, I wanted a buddy. Well, then my buddy had her boyfriend, never met him. And he's in the car. He's driving me fucking crazy the whole time, like talking incessantly and like rudely. And I could tell he was nervous. I read him right away. I was like, this boy is nervous. This is what he does. He needs to settle down though. Like, I hope he settles down. So my nerves going out there it was interesting that I had spent so much time preparing. And then in the vessel there, I have this like pest. And I'm like, oh my God. And I'm bringing him. So I also felt like, gosh, what have I done? I'm bringing this like dude who just said like three racist things, It's like, can you zip it, dude? I was so nervous about that. We get there and it was, this is going to make sense to you. So in, in native time, in indigenous time, it doesn't really exist. So it's like, come out there at 7 o'clock. And they had drawn some directions, of course, because the reservation is super remote. And we are just driving on the prairie, just driving in my Subaru, like, okay, well, the sun's going to go down and it's 8:15 and we don't see anybody. And we're like, is that a cemetery? Like, we probably shouldn't be driving out here. And some of it was so rugged, going over riverbeds. Did that circle like 3 times. Finally, I see Thomas in his truck, and it's like, oh, hey. And he kind of directs us to the right direction, which if we hadn't found him, I think we would have been lost. I don't think we would have ever found it, especially because it was starting to get a little darker. But he says, okay, so there's some problems. I thought I had permission to be on this land, but I'm not sure I do. I've got to go talk to Uncle. I'll be right back. So this is also very typical in the Native culture. You've got to go talk to the elders and hash everything out. Some cousin who had said it was okay actually was kicked out of the family, and that cousin's not there anymore. So Thomas had to go basically prove himself very quickly that
Okay.
he's bringing white people and other natives to this land. We're doing drugs. and there's going to be a lot of shitting and vomiting, but it's going to be okay.
We're sitting ceremony. Don't worry. Everything's fine. We got
Yeah,
this.
yeah, it's fine. So what's cool about that though is Thomas, I think that was the right thing to do, obviously. I think it was the thing that needed to happen. So he's got, of course, you have your offerings. You bring tobacco, you bring sage, you bring sweetgrass, you bring all the flowers, all the things. And so he grabbed a few of his offerings, heads over to the house, and he's gone for like almost 2 hours. So in the meantime, we were supposed to start setting up at 8 p.m. and it's now almost 10. And yeah, it's summer, so it's you got a little bit of light in the sky, but we don't even start setting up. So we're all just hanging out, getting mosquito bit, but it's gorgeous. It's summer solstice. The sky is beautiful out there in the prairie, and you really can't be upset. But we were also thinking this might not happen. We might be going home. But then Thomas rolls in, headlights are on, and he's like, yeah, let's go. So we start setting up real quick, and everything was really fast now. It was like, because ceremony, pre-ceremony, it's like they wanted things to get going before midnight. And yeah, we set up. We were in a big circle. So we set up our tents away from the circle, like on the other side of the riverbed. And then we had a big circle, sacred fire in the center. They had these really fancy bathrooms that they had set up. So I was actually like, well, you know what? I can do that. That's a nice bathroom. It was like a nice little lit up tent. They were digging holes for throwing up. Everyone's getting big paper towel rolls. Everyone got really cozy. The shamans had set up their altar, which had tapestries. The music started, and it just happened. We just rolled into it, and there we were. And at that point, it was probably midnight when it started.
Wow. Okay. Yeah, a little bit of a late jump, but hey, it all happens as it's meant to happen.
Mm-hmm.
So,
Mm-hmm.
okay. So everybody's there. You're in the circle. Medicine's going down. So,
We started with rape.
okay. Okay.
Yeah, so rape being the medicine to bring us into circle and to ground us. I have no fucking clue what rape is. I just see this really beautiful pipe. This beautiful shaman Maria is shooting it up people's nose. I see them going and spitting and lots of fluids coming out of their mouths. And my heart is like, and I was like, oh, fuck. Here it goes. But also just like, gratitude. I'm grateful to be here. I have no clue what this is going to feel like. They said it's like, they kind of gave us a little warning. This is basically like straight nicotine, straight tobacco up to your brain. I smoke half a cigarette and I'm like, woo! So I was like, okay, here we go. And I will back up just a little bit for that too. The shamans had to be aware of what medical conditions you have, what medications you're on, which none for me, but I do have a history of nocturnal seizures that are induced by stress, lack of sleep, alcohol, anything that lowers my threshold, which I'm still finding out there's new things that lower my threshold. So they were aware that I could potentially have a seizure, and I was aware of that too. The times I've had seizures, I have grand mals, they're pretty bad. I've had to go to the emergency room, but I felt like if I was hydrated enough, which I did my best to stay hydrated that week, and that if somebody was keeping an eye on me, I would feel comfortable. So they were aware, and I was really grateful that they knew that, and that maybe they didn't shoot as much rape up my face. They were like, she's sensitive. We'll just take it easy.
A little toot.
I mean, so you do one nostril and it's like, you got to fucking get the next one done. It's like, I barely made it. I did it. Yeah. I barely made it over to my little spot before I dropped to the ground, and it kicked my ass. And I was like, oh, they're so funny when they say grounding. It's not white people yoga grounding. Okay. It's actual grounding. Like, my spine was folded over, and because they're like, don't swallow it. It makes it worse. And you could tell anytime you accidentally post nasal let it go down, you're like, oh, because it hits your stomach and it's like, it's coming right back up. Music's going. And that's honestly like my memory from there is a little foggy because time didn't exist anymore.
Mm.
I was regretting my decision immediately.
And yet it's barely begun. It hasn't
Oh,
begun.
oh, exactly. Because I thought, like, if this is rape and ayahuasca is coming, oh my God, what did I get into here? But there's also like, I'm somebody like, once I start, I'm not going to stop. I'm
Yeah.
never gonna be like, I can't do it. It's like, I'm here now. I'm here now. So let's go. Let's do this. It's kind of like a tattoo, right?
Yeah. Yeah. I'm
You're
not
like,
walking away with just an outline.
nope.
Let's finish it. Okay. So, all right. So, how the medicine is like everybody drinks at the same time and
There was a line. So
okay.
once, and then, like I said, time, ooh, I'm not sure. But like, once the rape kind of settled through
Mhm.
and in, and then you're just in sort of this rhythmic feeling. Definitely grounded, definitely feeling like what's interesting is I can say looking back that I was grounded and I wasn't here yet. You know, I wasn't, so rape takes you here to serpent. And then we all got in the line to get our, I almost said cacao. Those little, lovely little cacao ceremonies. No, it was the ayahuasca. And yeah, so it was a line, just like rape, we did a line. And they gave me a little less, I noticed, which I was grateful for. And I did say thank you right then and there. Like, thank you for accommodating me. Drank that and waited, went back to my little sacred cushions and pillows and waited. And every once in a while, I was aware of like what was going on around me and who was going over to the hole. And it was pretty shortly after I sat down and the medicine was like slithering down to my stomach. Ayahuasca reminded me of like if you would drink cigarettes, like if you would ground up cigarettes and like had some cacao and had some like other grass or something. It was better than the rape, I have to say though. Like when I ingested it, I was like, oh, delicious.
I'll have
Thank
a
you.
little more. That was great. Thanks.
Yeah, top that off with some cinnamon.
Nice.
But it was shortly after that the first people who had taken the medicine were running over to the holes. And they had said like, try to hold it, try not to throw up right away. So I'm sitting there on the ground and yeah, it was the tingles in your jaw and the watering of the mouth. And I was like, oh, wait, it's not going to last for me. I'm not going to last very long. But I wanted to have, again, this like reverence for the medicine. So I slowly got up. I slowly walked over to the hole. I set myself down. And like before I even started gagging, I was like, thank you. Thank you. And it didn't bother me at that point. Honestly, the rape experience was so much more intense that what was happening during the ayahuasca medicine going through me, I was okay. It's like I could handle it now. Like I was like, oh, I can handle these little, that's okay. Going back to my seat and just hanging out there. And I think I just went into like a deep meditation. It was meditation, sometimes disassociation. It reminded me of being in labor when I was in labor with Charlotte, where I was not scared anymore. It was just something I had to go through. I was in pain. I was uncomfortable. The vomiting reminded me of labor quite a bit. But it was, yeah, there was a sense of calm now where the rape, I was like shaking the whole time. This was like waves of calmness and, oh, here comes another one. Okay, here we like contractions. It absolutely reminded me of contractions, where I was in a squeeze and then an opening, and a squeeze and an opening, a pain and a relief. And there was so much breath work happening.
I love that parallel, actually, that it's kind of like a birth with the contractions. That makes perfect sense, especially with the feminine energy of ayahuasca. Yeah, that's a really great way to relate the two.
Yeah.
As you're having these like contractions, um, what is occurring in these things? Like, are they like totally, is every contraction, I just like that word, but
Mm-hmm.
are these each different experiences? Are they like accompanied with different visuals, or every one is a different challenge? Or is it more like you're in like the same type of story or thought process, but just going layers deeper? Does that make sense?
Yes. Yes, exactly. It was, and I'm seeing myself kind of being like on a boat or something, like with waves, being to the shore, out away from shore. I'm there, I'm not there. So the theme that started to come up for me was loneliness and feeling alone and like I can't ask for help. I'm out on this boat and I'm on a fucking boat. There's nobody out here. I am by myself. And so, yeah, the waves started to just like take me deeper out away from shore. And I think I even remember seeing, God, it's crazy. I didn't think about these visuals at all, but now that you've asked, I remember feeling tethered to the shore like an umbilical cord, but going farther and farther and farther out. So even though I was afraid of being out in the middle of the ocean, I only know how to speak like in metaphor, I guess, at this point. Um, so stay with me. Even though I'm out there, there's still a cord. So I know I have a sense that I can pull on it and someone might pull me in. I have a sense that I can pull myself in. But that sense is very small compared to my fear of being alone. My fear of being alone is taking over. And I start to feel myself then in the experience sitting there with others that I'm absolutely alone and nobody can understand. So now I'm being like on another layer of this, I'm being transported back to my childhood and feeling like alone in my room and all the layers of loneliness. But then there's this little part with the cord that's like, you're not alone. Pull the cord. Pull on this cord and I'm going to come get you. I'm not sure who I am. Like, who's that person? Who's saying that? What? I just knew that I had this little voice that was like, go ahead. You're okay. But my body at this point was so tired and I felt like I couldn't pull that cord alone. I couldn't. And I think that just went on for hours, just reliving the experience of sadness and loneliness. And my mother came up quite a bit in that scenario, as she is the one who probably more than anyone else, like probably with the visions too of the umbilical cord, like I just didn't feel like I could ever ask my mom for help or that she was there. There was just that, all of those wounds, whatever it is, starting with childhood, babyhood, womb stuff. I mean, I swear it felt like womb stuff. Like I'm in the womb and I'm not feeling okay. I'm not feeling very safe. So I'm all crumpled over like a sad little lady. And one of the helpers came over. And so this is hours later and the waves had sort of slowed down. They had sort of slowed down. Granted, again, I didn't take as much as everyone else. And at this point, too, some other people were starting to do Bufa. Is that right?
Bufo?
Bufo. So there's other medicines being administered, which I said, no, my limit, I don't want to, I didn't have a seizure. Let's not push it. I
Good.
also thought if I had a seizure, it could have been like life changing, possibly death. But I was like, well, we can test
Middle of
it.
the res, maybe not the best situation.
Exactly. So I'm noticing people now. I'm kind of aware again. I'm like, oh, people are doing other medicines, and there's now they're singing. I hear on top because the music had been playing. People were drums. I look over at the fire. Oh, they're playing guitars. Oh, people are okay. It's weird that I had lost sense of who else was there. P.S. The annoying boyfriend did fine. He did not disrupt anybody. He stepped into some level of himself and took care of it. So
That's good.
just in case you guys were wondering what happened to that guy, he was fine.
I wanted to come back to that. So, okay, good.
No, he did good.
So did this, like, seeing that now coming after having been in like a rolling boat of sadness for a while, like
Yeah.
seeing that other people are there and maybe having a different experience, like did that then like snap you into a next level? Like did it pull you out of your sadness or just made you aware of what was happening around
Just
you?
aware,
Just
just
aware.
suddenly aware.
Mhm.
And in fact, it sort of solidified my loneliness. Like I still didn't know how to get up and go join them, you know? So I'm crumpled over, looking sad. And I think I was shivering at this point. It was like probably 3 a.m, 3 or 4, not quite 4. Cause I remember when it was probably 4 cause the sun, it was a beautiful moment. So it was not quite there yet, but it was dark. It was the darkest of the night. And one of the helpers, an older man, came over and he scooped me up. He just like wrapped his arms around me and said, come over to the fire. Come here. Cause I'm like, come over to the fire. He sets me down. He puts this really wonderful wool blanket around me. And immediately, like I'm in a chair right in front of the fire. I see everyone else around the fire and they've got their guitars and they're looking good. And I immediately feel the fire's warmth. And I was like, like, oh my gosh. Okay. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you for seeing me. Thank you for bringing me here. And I've never felt sacred fire or what that meant until that moment. What fire's warm. It feels good. Okay. But in that moment, it gave me life. It gave me life. I was cold and shivering and alone. Literally, figuratively, I was. And it did take another human to come over and get me. Had I got to the point where I was cold enough, would I have got up? I don't know. It doesn't really matter. That wasn't part of the story. The story was that some human came over and saw me and wouldn't let me be like that. Let me help you. And just took me and did the right thing in that moment for me. And then there was this beautiful, beautiful Black woman who was singing right in front of me. And she had the voice of an angel. And she fell asleep on my feet. Like after she was singing, she was just like, ding. And I loved now her pressure, this angel like grounding me with my feet and the fires warming me up. And then I could see that it was dawn, that the sky was no longer really, really dark, but it was starting to have that beautiful dark blue. And you could, because we were like in this riverbed. So like there were these cliffs of sandstone and limestone all around us. And so you could see like where the light was changing from that beautiful light bluish, the sun's coming up to that dark blue, and then the stars. So then I'm like just completely enthralled with what's around me. And if I closed my eyes, I had total fucking trips, like of pixelated, I don't know. It was like Art Deco. Like I was in an Art Deco 1920s painting. So whether my eyes were opened or closed, I felt like I was in the most beautiful scene and space and time. And I started looking around at all the people, and I see people giving hugs. I see, now the sun's coming up even more, and there's hugs being had, and there's more people being helped over to the fire. And I know it's so cliche and so simple, but for me, seeing all that and feeling it, like really feeling it, I was changed. I was a changed person. It was like, oh, if I want a hug, I just have to ask for a hug. Like, these people will give hugs. Okay. And so I start going around and hugging people. Like, I immediately start practicing like what I think I have to practice. And it's like, go ask for a hug. Go ask that guy for a hug. Go thank that guy. All right. And so it's so cheesy, but it's like my message that came through was like, you don't have to push people away. You don't, because you feel like you're alone, or you feel like, in integration that morning, we had, breakfast, sun's completely up. It's hotter than hell. And everyone's talking about their experiences. And yeah, I was really overwhelmed with the fact that I had never been alone. It was it was like, I thought I was, but then it was like, wait, I've never been alone. So how could I be lonely if I was, it's all here. And it switched for me. It completely switched. And knowing that I was never alone changed how I felt. It was like I had just band-aid and wound fixed, nurse wound, like all of these memories, and it wasn't the same. I wasn't alone. I was never alone. I always had that cord. I was choosing to be out there in my misery. It was my choice always to do that for whatever reason. That's another trip, I guess. Maybe you don't need to know. But it was so beautiful that I could say, I'm ready for love. And I have been obsessed with love my whole life. I have, this teenage drama angst about love. My 20s was angsty and like, nobody loves me. That's just not true. That's just not true. I just wasn't available to be even aware that if I just stepped over by the fire and sat down, it would feel like love. And I don't even know. I feel like ayahuasca gave me the ability to feel love, where I'm not sure I could feel it before. It was there. It's always been there. I just couldn't feel it. And then now I can feel. And the floodgates opened. I bawled. I was crying. And one of the shamans said, is it okay if we all give you a hug? Can we give you a hug? And I was like, oh my God, yes. All 30 people came around and we all hugged. And I was in the center. And that's something I couldn't have handled before. I would have been so uncomfortable getting even one hug, let alone 30 people's love. But I did. I accepted it. I opened up. And that's what grandmother ayahuasca gave me, was the ability to open up and to actually feel loved.
So was this like this was like this was a moment in time, or rather a long agonizing night, but this was a moment in time that like changed something for you that now has like you've been a different person ever since. Have you
Yes.
like come back to struggling with this same feeling, or did this like change everything?
Every once in a while, there is that feeling that I have to push somebody away. Eric, my lover right now, I get a sense that he is done with me. I'm too much. I'm annoying. I'm too emotional. I talk too much. Whatever the fuck it is. He needs to be away. So he's got his own house. I have my own house. I actually prefer it that way. But it's funny when it's like, now all of a sudden it's serving my wound to be like, he must not want to be around me anymore. And so I find myself wanting to go to my bedroom shut the door, ignore his text messages, but I don't let it last long at all. It is something I recognize, and I'm like, oh, no, that's not love. That's not how we do this. If I'm uncomfortable or if I have an issue with even myself and I'm kind of driving myself crazy, I'm going to be vulnerable. I'm going to open up. I'm going to lean into this discomfort, and I'm going to say, first, take care of myself. First, check in, breathe. I'm safe. I'm okay. Is that the truth? No. Okay. And then like maybe reach out to him. I often will just wait. I'll journal because I feel like it has been important for me to feel safe by myself. I'm okay. I'm okay. I'm going to pull on that cord later. I'm going to tug on, and I'll tell him, hey, I had this moment where I was kind of feeling like I was about to push you away. And I'd be like, can you feel that when I do that? And he's like, yeah, you get kind of cold. It's like, okay, all right. And we're just super honest with each other. But to back up a little bit with the love thing, because it had to do with my mother, she got really sick a couple months later. And then she died suddenly. And I have to thank ayahuasca because I don't think I could have handled it. But it was her passing that I recognized this is what happens. This is life. We also die. And I was there for her. And I am still trying to figure out maybe the intricacies of that connection, but I can't unconnect it. It's absolutely connected that I had this experience about feeling open and loved and good enough. And it was my mother who, did not mean to, but wounded me. And so in her death, I didn't have any resentments. It wasn't like, oh, I never got to say this. I never got to tell her. That shit did not matter. It was not her fault. I wanted her to be able to leave this earth knowing that she's loved too. Because she didn't get that realization that I did. She passed it on to me, unfortunately. I think it's an epigenetic wound that we can pass on. I think I collected it there in her womb. And I just wanted her to know that I'm okay. And so I was there. I didn't push her away. I didn't push away her death. I didn't not show up. I was like, I'm going to be there and I'm going to go through this with her. And I think that ayahuasca was the practice for that moment. Again, a sort of contraction and then a release, this pain, and then it's gone. It's over. And so it wasn't just that night, but it was that experience of my mother's death. Then I was able to say, fuck being lonely. Fuck being like in my little boat out here crying. I'm going to go get me a fisherman. Because for me, I think to be human is to be in relationship. And I think we need each other to heal those interrelational. You can do as much as you want in the cave alone, shadow work style. You can read all the books, do all the drugs. But until you get in relationship with somebody, if you have a relationship wound, most of us do, until you can practice that, it's not healed yet. And so, yes, I continue to feel these things in my relationship with Eric because he's my lover right now. And with my daughter, there's a lot of things that come up with her. But it's ultimately that I'm not going to run away. I'm not going to go out to my little boat. I'm going to feel this discomfort with somebody right next to me. I'm going to sit right next to this person and be like, hold on. We don't have to talk. Because my mom and I, in those 3 days that she was in hospice, didn't talk a whole lot. We were just there with each other. But it was even in that quiet space, we were able to heal a lot of unsaid things. And I think that's powerful, to just sit next to somebody and be like, I'm really uncomfortable. And they're like, yeah, me too. I'm fucking dying. And I'm like, okay, I'm really uncomfortable with that, but I'm here. And so being thrust in, like into this, all of a sudden I'm next to death. all of a sudden I thought I was, but then actually now I am. And it's like, I lined up basically. It taught me to be a lighter person and not be so serious about everything, because life ends and it can end very quickly. And I knew that, but I didn't know that until my mom passed. So that was 2 years ago. So I'm still definitely thinking about all those things and how that works with me now.
There's so much mother energy around all of that, not just in like how the analogies used and things like that, and that powerful story about walking your mom through the death portal. How do you think that, like, how did your relationship with your daughter change, or how were you able to maybe soften in that relationship to perhaps cut a cord that you don't want Charlotte to carry on into her life? Like, is there an awareness of that when you're with her and mothering her and thinking about how you want her to feel and relate to others?
Yeah, and that is I gotta plug in my computer. That's very much a practice. So while the theory, the memories changed and everything for me, I think now I'm aware as a mother to soften, to be softer and not be so cold and not take things so personally when it comes to her and her like lashing out at me. And just, I don't know, I'm still stepping into what it means to be a mom, what it means to be a presence in a kid's life, their mother. I'm still figuring that out. It's still a practice, but softening has been a big thing where just take it easy. It's not so serious, and that starts with me to be able to show her that we can just, it's all right. It's all right to have these big feelings. You're not too much for me to handle. You don't have to run away. You don't have to shut me out. If you want to, that's okay right now. But reminding her that she's not too much, because she is deeply emotional. And she's allowed to have those emotions where I wasn't so much. So that's why I just went away, shut down. I want her to know I can handle it. I can, again, like, I'm right here. You're going to have a freak out? Okay. Have your freak out. And I've noticed that when I am able to allow her the space to tornado and spiral and freak out, it doesn't last very long. But if I get wrapped into it with my own anxiety and my own, like, gotta fix it, gotta calm her down, and then usually that ends up me yelling at her. I'm not sure why parents do this. That's the opposite of what needs to happen. Then if we're both in the tornado, we are just hugely, irrationally upset. And then it's harder to come back and be okay. So it's like, all right, be the mother, be the mother, be the mother. And that's a hard one for me to step into because I'm often big sister. I was a big sister growing up, or I'm wounded Elizabeth. And I operate from wounded Elizabeth. Sometimes I'll even be like, my mother would never have allowed this. And I'm like, oh yeah, it's because she was very depressed and angry and suppressed. It's like, of course she wouldn't. She could not handle it. She couldn't handle her own emotions, let alone mine. So yeah, being able to be the big mom, big mama, and be like, we can handle hard things, and I'm going to be here when you freak out. It's all right. I'm just going to watch you. That's a practice though. Believe me, it's not perfect. I'm going to plug in here.
Yeah, that's a practice. Absolutely. So would you do ayahuasca again? Has the nudge happened again, or
No way,
what do you
Jose.
think about it now?
I think it's coming back to, like, if it calls to me, maybe I will. Again, like, maybe if the opportunity arises. But you know
You're
what,
not
I
thinking.
don't want to talk shit about ayahuasca, because that's, I'm not talking shit about grandma here. But what I learned in that experience was that I could have learned those things. I have been learning those things through my other practices, through all my other practices. What ayahuasca did was fucking fast. It hit me fast, and I am a Taurus. I do not need fast lessons. I mean, I'm grateful for it, and it happened the way it should have. But the things that I learned, I have been learning along the way, and I have been in practice with. So, no, I probably won't do it again. I don't think I will. Again, maybe if the situation comes up, I might. I won't say no. Oh, my charger's not working. Hello, Mercury. It might just die.
Well, I feel like that was an incredible share. I'm so grateful that you took the time to meet with me today and tell me about this awesome experience.
Yeah, thanks for asking. Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. All right.